Have you ever noticed that every few months, the UFC downloads a new main character? Last year it was Alex Pereira. Before that, Islam Makhachev. Today, it is Ilia Topuria. Good people, I am Aristotle. For many years, I studied greatness, virtue, and human nature. Then I opened a UFC comment section and discovered something far more confusing. Ilia Topuria, a man so confident that his confidence appears to have confidence. How did one fighter become the UFC's newest obsession? Let us investigate. Reason number 1, the prophecy problem. Topuria's rise did not begin with a knockout. It began with a prediction. You see, throughout history, humans have always been attracted to certainty. In my era, generals promised victory, politicians promised prosperity, and philosophers promised wisdom. Most of us were occasionally disappointed. Topuria, however, developed a rather inconvenient habit. Before fighting Alexander Volkanovski, he predicted a knockout. Then he knocked him out. Before fighting Max Holloway, he predicted a knockout. Then he knocked him out. This creates a psychological problem, because confidence is attractive. But confidence that keeps working becomes mythology. At some point, fans stop hearing predictions. They begin hearing prophecies. At this moment, many UFC fans are no longer asking whether Topuria can win. They are asking which chapter of the legend comes next. And that, my dear viewer, is a very dangerous stage of hero worship. Reason number 2, the Volkanovski earthquake. To understand the Topuria phenomenon, you must first understand Volkanovski. Volkanovski was not simply a champion. He was one of the most respected fighters in the sport. Many fans believed he would remain champion for years. Then Topuria arrived, and suddenly the conversation changed. One knockout transformed the entire division. In ancient Greece, when a young warrior defeated a king, people wrote stories. Modern UFC fans create YouTube shorts. The principle remains unchanged. What fascinated me was not the knockout itself, it was the reaction. Overnight, Topuria stopped being a contender. He became a symbol of the future, a symbol of inevitability, a symbol that UFC fans would spend the next 12 months arguing about on the internet. Remarkable. I spent years teaching logic. The internet has spent years teaching confidence. One of us appears to be winning. Reason number 3, the Holloway incident. Now, normally, when UFC fans become excited about a fighter, I remain calm. History is filled with hype. History is also filled with disappointment. Then I discovered Max Holloway, a man who had survived wars against Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and practically the entire featherweight division. For years, fighters attempted to knock him out. None succeeded. Then Topuria arrived, and suddenly one of the most durable men in the sport was staring at the ceiling. This was the moment the hype changed. Because defeating a champion earns respect, but doing something nobody else could do creates mythology. After the Holloway knockout, UFC fans stopped discussing whether Topuria was elite. They began discussing where he belongs in history, which is remarkable. The man had barely finished celebrating, and the internet had already started building statues. Reason number 4, the Conor problem. Every generation searches for a superstar, someone who wins fights, sells tickets, and dominates headlines. For many years, that man was Conor McGregor. Then, as often happens in history, people began searching for the next version, and suddenly Topuria found himself in a very interesting conversation. The comparisons appeared everywhere: the confidence, the predictions, the knockouts, the ability to make entire fan bases extremely emotional. At this point, mentioning Topuria on social media produces roughly the same effect as mentioning politics during Thanksgiving dinner. Nobody remains calm. Now, are Topuria and Conor the same fighter? Of course not. But humans have a fascinating habit. Whenever they encounter something new, they immediately compare it to something familiar, which explains why UFC fans spend half their time watching fights and the other half casting sequels. So, what exactly is the Topuria phenomenon? Is it the confidence? Partly. Is it the knockouts? Certainly. Is it the victories over Volkanovski and Holloway? Without question. But I believe the real answer is simpler. Topuria has become a story, and human beings love stories. We always have. In my era, people spoke of Achilles. Today, they speak of undefeated champions. The names change. The psychology remains remarkably consistent. Because the moment people stop asking, can he win, and start asking, can anyone stop him? A fighter becomes something more than a fighter. He becomes a legend. My dear viewer, I am Aristotle, and after carefully studying the Topuria phenomenon, I have reached a conclusion. Ilia Topuria may or may not become the greatest fighter of his generation, but he has already achieved something far more difficult. He has convinced the internet to agree on absolutely nothing. Half the population believes he is unstoppable, the other half is waiting for his downfall, which means business is booming. If you enjoyed this investigation into modern civilization, subscribe to Timeline Tower, where historical figures attempt to explain why humanity keeps repeating the same mistakes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must return to ancient Greece. Apparently Socrates has started a podcast, and nobody can get him to stop asking questions.